Hi, I'm Lindsay Reiser. We're following breaking news from Dallas, where a large fire is burning out of control. Let's go to CBS News Texas for live coverage.
Construction crews that are in and out at any time of the day, and maybe that's one of the reasons why that truck that we saw burnt out was parked out front. You know, we don't know, but certainly that could be the case. But now we see also, Karen, firefighters on the rear side. We were talking about this being an all-hands-on-deck effort, and them, you know, shooting water from wherever they can onto the fire. We have them on both sides. We've got aerial ladders.
It does look like they're making headway. And
it does a little bit. You can see the color of the smoke here is changing as well. You know, when you start getting this sort of whiter color to the smoke, sort of a gray, you know, that shows that there's some sort of extinguishing going on. Just minutes ago, it was full black, and the original shot that we got from the helicopter, once we knew that the chopper was heading there, was just a huge black plume of smoke that was going right back up into the air. So they are advancing. This is not going to be something that's going to be taken care of immediately, though. I mean, when you take a look at the size of the apartment, the footprint of the apartment complex there, and just how expansive this is, you know, they're going to be there for a while. Even when they do put get the majority of the flames out, there will inevitably be hot spots that they need to tend to as well. But again, when you look at that part right there, you see all that brick, you see all the smashed out windows and all that. That is an indicator of some sort of an explosion that took place.
Exactly. And again, you know, flames just pouring and smoke pouring from this building from all sides. And we were looking earlier at some of the firefighters just a little bit further off to the right, resting, because this call did come in. They've been fighting this fire for more than an hour now. And I would have to imagine that given the temperatures today, it's a little bit warmer out there today, the humidity's rising. I mean, this has got to take a toll on all of these firefighters out there wearing the heavy gear that they're wearing, and the exertion that is going into these efforts to try to put out this fire. I
want to point something out right here, because you see this group of firefighters. They're removing debris piece by piece. So there's even one with a chainsaw trying to make way through. To me, that indicates two different things that could possibly be going on. That's the beginning of a search and rescue effort where they're trying to clear debris to possibly get to people that might still be trapped inside there, maybe, perhaps, or secondly, they're trying to create some sort of a venting situation if in fact there are other embers or other flames underneath all of that where they can't see. They need to vent that, get that out, so they can extinguish that. But again, all indicators that this is very much still an hour and change into it, and a very active response where fire crews on the ground and the incident command is considering two things. They have to put the fire out, the initial response, and of course they have to consider any sort of life-saving measures that need to be taking place down there on the ground.
And I have to say, Ken, one of the things that I love that you bring to this is your expertise, because you were a volunteer firefighter in former life. Yes, exactly. So you have a real good understanding of exactly what these guys are doing, the way they're doing it, how they're approaching it, and also, you know, what we're seeing here. You mentioned, you know, the bricks. You know, it's indicative of a blast of some sort.
Of some sort, right. We heard that possibly it was a natural gas explosion. We don't know that. I mean, we're checking in with Atmos as well. You know, and these are things. I'll tell you what, though, if it is in fact, if that's what it turns out to be, this is not going to be the first time in any kind of recent memory, at least. I mean, we've been reporting on these kinds of things happening throughout the city of Dallas, you know,
two or three times in the last few months.
Just recently, right? Just within this year. So if this turns out to be another one, you know, there's going to be some serious questions that we need to ask about, you know, when it comes to infrastructure throughout the city of Dallas as it pertains to this. We don't want to jump to that just yet, because we don't know that for certain.
So if you are just joining us, we do want to let you know this is a huge fire, and we believe an explosion that happened at this apartment complex, the Clyde Apartments. This is at East 9th and North Patton, and as Ken was mentioning, this is like in the eastern part, right, of the Bishop Arts District?
Just east of it, yes. Yeah,
so this is north of the zoo. This is, if you're familiar with the area or maybe not familiar with the area, it's right by Adamson High School. You can see the football field right there. And this is the nearest big cross streets might be Zhang and Davis. Again, some sort of an explosion, we believe, happened at this two-story apartment complex that you can tell just by looking, fully engulfed in flames. More than 100 firefighters, or nearly 100 firefighters, we're told, tackling this fire now, and really from all angles, from the ground and an aerial attack, as you can see, from again, different angles.
Yeah, and it's going going to go on for a while, probably throughout the evening, really, at this point. Even if they get the initial attack under control, they're going to have to make sure that there are no hotspots and that there aren't any possibilities of a reignition happening later on in the day, especially if this is, in fact, something where there's an active gas line that might be fueling this.
Sure.
You know, then that adds another level of problems for these firefighters.
And you might be able to answer this question because I noticed, you know, like for instance, from that aerial tech, from that ladder right there, the fire's coming out in one stream. They're not. It's not like here over to the top of the screen, the top of your screen right now. You can see it's kind of moving around a little bit. They're moving it in different areas, and I'm wondering. It looks like they've got like a little utility shed maybe, or some sort of at the. Maybe at the back side of this apartment complex. They don't seem to be too concerned about putting out the flames there, but are really concentrating on the center part of the building.
They probably have a sort of a core section of that building that they're focusing in on. So what they're doing with those streams is they're hitting the bottom of it and kind of in a sweeping motion to try and get that. You know, that's a basic maneuver that firefighters use. As far as the shed in the back, perhaps they just can't get those streams to it all the way in the back. I don't know why that's still going. But, you know, to the point that you were making earlier about them making some progress, we're starting to see, if you notice here, you know, because we've been watching it for at least a few minutes now, pay attention to the color of the smoke and the way that it's changing.
Right.
Right? Because when we first saw this, it was thick black, and that means that a lot of these things were burning, a lot of wood, a lot of combustibles, a lot of furniture. This means now that they're making headway in extinguishing it, and that's why the color of it is.
And you just saw that firefighter move that couch all the way across the street. You just want to basically remove anything that has the potential to burn.
Yeah, I mean,
just get it out of there
if you can.
Yeah.
Again, you know, this is all hands on deck. Like we said, we've got 100 firefighters there on the ground, and they're all working on the same mission right now, is to try and get those flames out. We haven't heard much in the way of search and rescue operations at this point, but you know, you wouldn't be able to go in there under these conditions anyway. Right. So you know, that would be the next thing. And that's a concurrent, you know, concern right now that firefighters are having, and they're probably going to start making their way in. I keep looking at the firefighters down below. You see them?
Sure, yeah.
Kind of removing some of the debris, some of the rubble. That kind of activity, that kind of movement leads me, especially that many in one area, leads me to believe that perhaps this is the beginning of a search and rescue operation, and they're trying to just use their hands to get as quickly as they can off, so that they can start making their way a little further into the footprint of. So
is that what they're trying to do, or are they concentrating on that specific area? Because there is a lot of debris under where they are.
That's what it looks like to me. You know, but the only people that would really know for sure is, you know, the incident command on the staff. You know, if they get any initial reports on the ground of where people may have been. I don't know if this building was vacant or not at the time that this happened. I don't know if there were people inside. It did happen right in the middle of the day, so you want to think that perhaps people who live there, if it was a fully occupied building, that maybe they were at work.
Hopefully, yeah.
Or they weren't there. You know, all those factors come into play when you're thinking about search and rescue operations, when you're thinking about getting to people and getting to them quickly. But, you know, again, first things first, you see, I mean, and you can see the flames are mostly gone now. A big difference from what we saw, 10 minutes ago? Is that when it went on air? About 10 minutes ago?
Yeah, probably, yeah. I'm sorry, I wasn't even looking at the clock. But, but again, we do know, you mentioned search and rescue. We do know one person has been taken to the hospital, but DFR tells us that that number could easily change depending on the number of people who were inside the apartments at the time of the incident, which again, they got the call at 12:47. So this has been going on for about an hour and 15 minutes that they've been tackling this fire. And when we first joined you, when we first interrupted programming, this building was fully engulfed in flames shooting from everywhere. And that's why I mentioned earlier that it seems like they are making some headway, because I would think it's much better to see that white smoke than it would be to see flames coming out of the building at this point.
The location of all of this, again, also just east of the very popular Bishop Arts Entertainment District, also just north of the Dallas Zoo. We did check in with the zoo, by the way. Our producers are telling us that the Dallas Zoo is not reporting any kind of disruptions. They are monitoring the situation, and specifically they're monitoring all of the smoke. Sure. Obviously, they have animals out there, and they have to worry about the well-being of the animals at the zoo as well. So depending on which way the wind might be blowing out there, you know, these plumes of smoke might be headed down into the area of the zoo. Maybe, maybe not, but that's something that they're saying they're keeping a very close eye on, and that they are also monitoring. But again, look, this is what I was telling you.
Yeah, they're pouring water on.
And they're you know, they're going, you know, any piece that they can grab, they're pulling out of there.
Moving it.
So, you know, and they're moving with some sort of, you know, expediency here. So that, I mean, to me, an urgency. So to me, this looks like the beginning stages of a search and rescue operation, at least to my eye.
Yeah, I was hoping, because obviously I don't want to think about anybody possibly being trapped under there, but my hope is that it's, as you mentioned, maybe trying to vent the fire, to make sure that, you know, get water to these places, because you don't want any heat and flames that may be below that to cause another explosion.
So, I mean, you know, the other thing you have to consider is, you know, the safety of the firefighters that are this close to, you know, all of that, the fire, the heat, the smoke, all of these pieces of debris. I mean, God knows just how sharp some of these things are. So, you know, for them to be putting themselves in that kind of danger, to me, also speaks of another sort of a heightened level of urgency. So, you know, why would they do that? And that usually is to preserve life and property, is what firefighters are taught.
Sure.
You know, when you sort of analyze taking this kind of a risk and this kind of an effort. But again, look, you see right there, they're just pulling pieces of plywood and trying to hit smoke. So, you know, it could be that they know that there's maybe more embers, more fire underneath there. Or perhaps, like I said, the only other thing that I can think of is maybe some sort of a search and rescue.
And you know, we were talking about the proximity of this apartment complex. I mean, it's abutted next to another apartment complex, and then it looks like a single-family dwelling.
And then on the other side, a four-story apartment.
Right.
I mean, you get a little bit of everything down there when it comes to the buildings and everyone just kind of living real close to each other. What we also saw, let's see if it can pan out. Here we go. So as the chopper pans out, if you look over to the right side of the screen there, you can see some of the debris that has also sort of crossed over to the other side of the street. So you start to consider now, you know, obviously we're worried and we're concerned about anybody who was in the immediate area where this happened. But, you know, if this was in fact a blast that was powerful enough to send those pieces of bricks and
onto the sidewalk,
who maybe was walking by, you know, who was present in the area that could have possibly also been hit by some of this. You know, and again, these are all things that, you know, it's easy for us to talk about right now because we're seeing these aerial video images. And this video coming in from the chopper, but you know, these are things that crews on the ground, they're having to assess all of this in real time and formulate a game plan as to how they're responding to it.
And look at that. I don't know how it got there, but it looks like you know, a gate or some sort, or like a door, like a metal, you know, screen door or something like that. And you have to wonder if it was put there because the firefighters were dragging it away, or if it blew there.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's not going to be long before we start hearing from witnesses and folks down there if they in fact heard a blast, if they felt it. You know, and all indicators right now, when you take the fact that the call initially came in as such, you start seeing some of the obvious evidence out here. And if we start hearing from witnesses pretty soon, which I presume will happen any moment now, if we haven't already started hearing from them, that they did feel some sort of a blast, that they did hear some sort of a big explosion, stepped outside, and this is what they encountered. But again, I mean, when it comes to a response to a structure fire, I mean, this is kind of as big as they get. You know, when you've got an entire building like that, there's no saving it.
Oh, and there goes the wall. And that was one of the things I know our newsroom kind of, you know, everybody sat up straight when we got the word that it was an apartment complex, an entire apartment complex that was up in flames. It's always unnerving and disconcerting, simply because you know that, you know, with people's lives today, you know, if these folks might work the night shift, and so they're home, you know, sleeping, you know, getting ready to work the night shift, or, you know, with school's out, you know, kids might be, you know, at home, you know, just taking part in everyday activities now that they're not in school.
Yeah, you start thinking of all of these things, and you just hope that it's the least of the concerns that we can sort of come up with right now.
But it was it looked like a smaller type of I mean, when you consider what an apartment complex, most people think of a complex. This was a building, an apartment building, a two-story, older looking apartment building that had probably been, you know, remodeled, rehabbed, and
from what was left of it, it looked like one of those like garden-style apartment complexes. And again, you're right. We say the word complex because that's what they are. But what we're not talking about is an apartment campus, as we see sometimes.
Exactly. Like the newer,
certainly did look to be older in age. The building smaller in size, but I mean, look at what's right next to it. You know, a newer one. Probably twice as tall, and then what looks to be a single-family home. Looks like you've got a couple of cars parked along the street. one of these cars in the driveway as well. But look at the roof of the house off to the left.
With all the debris on top of the roof.
Look at all the debris.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, how did it get there?
Yeah.
Right. And then you start thinking, okay, well, there probably is something to these initial reports of this being the result of an explosion.
Right.
I can tell you that from what we're seeing here, these firefighters that you see up on the ladders, they're going to be there for a while. The aerial attack allows them to get a specific angle into sort of the core where the fire would be that other firefighters on the ground can't get on their own. And they're probably applying some sort of a water and a foam mixture.
Retardant.
Right, to try and, it's much more effective than just water.
Right.
It's a mixture of foam and water.
How do they do it? How do they mix that? I mean, because usually, you know, you just see them, you know, attach the hose to the hydrant. How do they?
Yeah, well, it's a mixture. The hose to the hydrant then goes into the engines or the trucks, and
that's where
where the mixture happens, and then it kind of comes out the other side.
So, sorry, that is part of the wall from the apartment complex on top of.
Looks like a full wall panel.
Yeah, on top of the roof of the neighboring house.
Still, yeah, right.
Yeah, which again, it doesn't.
This must have been. I mean, it had to have been a blast.
A blast.
It had to have been a blast, and it must have been a huge one.
Right.
Because the whole place is leveled now. I don't think there's anything standing.
You know, and I'm looking at some of these firefighters and just the amount of smoke that's coming from this building, and they have made huge strides in tackling this fire, because when we first went on the air, as you mentioned about 25 minutes ago, there were just flames everywhere. Now what we're mostly seeing, at least from our vantage point, is smoke. But these firefighters, the ones on the ground at least, I'm not seeing them wearing masks, the respirators. I'm seeing just the firefighters in their other gear, but you have to hope that the guys on the ladders who are attacking it aerially.
No, they are.
Wearing, because the smoke is just coming right at him.
He's got his air packs. Some on the ground also have their air packs. I can't tell if they have their masks on them or not. But, you know, the other thing to take into consideration, you talk about why so many firefighters. They're probably going to need more than
they're rotating in and out. 100. You can see the guys at the bottom left of the screen.
Right. So, just so you know, those air packs that they work in, that they put on, depending on the physical shape of each individual firefighter, they can last anywhere between 12 to 20 minutes at a time of air.
Okay.
And that's it. It's not indefinite, you know.
Sure.
And so at that point, you have to start switching out or switching out air bottles as well. So when you consider that, you start thinking, you know, these firefighters are going to get pretty fatigued.
So take a look at the screen right now, Ken. Our sky cam shot. Look how, I mean, the smoke that is diminished. I mean, it really has compared to where we were 15 minutes ago.
Well, yeah, exactly. And at that point, I mean, we were talking about a straight plume of heavy black smoke going straight up.
Right.
Now it's, you know, obviously it's changed color. It's not a full cloud anymore. There's some break in it, and it's sort of shifting off. I think that looks like it's maybe to the east there.
Right.
That plume of smoke. So again, all indicators that fire crews are making a lot of progress in putting this fire out and extinguishing it. As they say, getting the wet stuff onto the hot stuff. Right. I mean, that's an easy way that firefighters talk about this kind of operation. But they're making great work of this. I can tell you this is not an easy operation by any means for any responding crews right now. And you more than likely, you know, have also search and rescue crews, paramedics, and other kind of EMTs standing by. So as soon as they're given the all clear that this is safe now to move forward, they can come in there and participate in some more of these search and rescue operations that we've talked about.
Okay, yeah, and they finally are tackling that what I'm guessing to be a utility shed or something at the back of the apartment complex. And look at the brick everywhere, the brick that we see. I mean, it just.
And again, another car back there. So, you know, I don't know. You know, it's hard to tell, you know, just how occupied this was at the time that this happened, because we see a couple of cars out there. You know, you want to think that maybe, you know, whoever owns those cars was inside or nearby. I mean, that's kind of where your mentality goes in all of this. But I certainly hope that it wasn't full, because then we're talking about something completely different than just a fire and smoke and debris. I mean, we're talking about the loss of life or serious.
And we just have to pray that that's not the case. But we do know that one person has been taken to the hospital. But as DFR has told us that you know, it's very possible that those numbers might change. And here you can see DPD cordoning off this area, trying to keep away the curious, those folks who are concerned about what's going on in their neighborhood. Again, this is the Clyde Apartments. This is at East 9th and North Patton. This is in the Bishop Arts District, just north of the Dallas Zoo. If you're wondering, where the nearest, the major cross streets, we're talking about Zhang and Davis. This is a 2-story apartment complex in what looks to be an explosion that has completely, the building was completely engulfed in flames when we joined you about 30 minutes ago now. This is right across from Adamson High School. Our helicopter was panning over it. So at one point, you can see a very clear view of the football field. So it's very close to a lot of things, including single-family house on one side and a 4-story apartment complex on the other.
Yeah, we were talking about 100 firefighters in the initial response, the 2 alarm, but I bet that's probably getting close to at least doubling at this point.
Yeah.
When you take a look at this, but look, now that some of the smoke is clearing, some of it, I mean, clearly there's still a lot. Look what's left. It's not much. I mean, it's just at this point, it's just it looks like a big pile of charred out, burnt debris. That's all it is.
And so once they do get the fire under control, get most of the flames out, you might still have hot spots. They'll be tackling that. What is the next step in the process? And you can see these firefighters here. They're hauling debris away. And Ken, as you mentioned, you have to hope they're not in there looking for people, but that is a fear, certainly a definite fear.
With this amount of firefighters that you see there's probably multiple operations going on at one time. And we're thankful that, Dallas has the kind of fire department that they do with the kind of personnel ready to go, and sort of their training to do all of this, because the things that are going on all at the same time right now are obviously you have the fire suppression effort, which is to put out the flames. Then you've got firefighters at the same time working to protect nearby exposures. You don't want those flames to catch a nearby building on fire, and that's a real possibility here.
Because the buildings are so close.
They're so close, right? And if there's any sort of, like I said, any sort of explosion that carried fire or an ember on a piece of wood or on a piece of material of roofing or something that hopped over to the next thing, now you have the possibility of that happening. And then lastly, the other thing that is certainly being talked about right now is how do they assess this for any sort of search and rescue efforts, right? Because right now this is not a situation in which they could go inside. I also use the word inside loosely because what is inside anymore? I mean, it's collapsed, but are they receiving reports on the ground? Is the incident commander receiving reports on the ground that there were people inside? Maybe not. More so, it's more than likely that they are. And perhaps that's what you're seeing right now, is you're seeing all these firefighters kind of gathered around. They're pulling to see if there's anybody underneath some of this rubble, as the other crews continue to work on putting out that fire and protecting those exposures.
And I would think that would be a very difficult thing to try to determine just exactly how many people might be inside that building, again, because we don't know. It's like you don't know everybody's individual patterns, their individual lifestyles, what it is that they do day in, day out on it.
I can tell you, though, to that point, Karen, that whether there's one person in there reported or a dozen of them, it doesn't matter to these firefighters. One or a dozen, it is worth them going on with these efforts. They're going to do what they're doing because this is what they're trained to do.
And this has got it. Look how the building is kind of listing part of it right there. I mean, you can see it's leaning. I would think that would be a really a dangerous situation for these firefighters because you don't know when a wall at this stage is going to collapse.
But again, there's this philosophy in firefighting that if there's life worth saving, worth preserving, you increase the risk in which you expose yourself to. Like you said, you got to do it. So if they're doing this, knowing that partially standing piece of roof is sort of leaning over their head, these are all indicators to me that they have some kind of information down there that requires them to be doing this, because otherwise you would pull them back and you'd say, hey, we've got this with the hoses.
And look how they're concentrated. You've got at least 20 firefighters right here, it looks like to me, and they're concentrated in this one area. And the four corners of the building, they're in this one corner
And unfortunately, whenever you've seen just images that come in from other types of disasters that look like this, whenever you've seen bridge collapse,
Right.
whenever you've seen other buildings come down, I'm thinking of what happened in Miami. I'm thinking of other buildings that have just kind of exploded or come down. When you see that kind of activity, that usually indicates that they're working off of some kind of information that perhaps somebody's still underneath all of that rubble, and that's why they're doing that.
Right. And they have been at it again. They got the first call at 12:47. So you're looking at a little over an hour and a half now,
Yeah.
and they're continuing to work.
Yeah. This came in. We just heard from Dallas Fire. This has now been officially upgraded to what is known as a four-alarm fire.
Okay.
We reported that I think the initial call went out as two. As soon as they responded, it became a 3 once they laid eyes on it and realized what it was, and now we're up to 4. The 4, to me, speaks to the additional manpower that they need down there, and equipment that they need, for 2 things: to handle what's going on here, and to inevitably start cycling out some of the firefighters, because they need to come out. They cannot work for an hour or 2 hours on end. There's not enough air in those tanks, and all the gear and sort of dangers that they're exposed to requires that they cycle in and out. So when you go to a 4th alarm fire, we were saying before they had about 100 firefighters on the ground, and that's exactly what I was trying to tell you. When you go to a 4th, you're going to have a whole lot more than 100. Especially for something like this. Most firefighters working on the ground, like you see, they're working 20,
We've
25
been
minutes.
watching live coverage from Dallas. Nearly 100 firefighters are responding to this massive fire at a 2-story apartment building. This is east of the Bishop Arts neighborhood, south of downtown. We know at least 1 person has been taken to the hospital. Dallas Fire Rescue says the fire may have been the result of an explosion, but that's still being investigated. We're going to continue to follow this and bring you the latest as developments happen. For now, we're going to take a quick break. You're watching CBS News 24/7.